Mahalo, Kelly, for that beautiful introduction. That was very kind and very gracious. And now I'm like, oh, I better live up to this, to all of these things we said. Yeah, I just want to start by saying good morning to everyone. Thank you so much for joining this talk this morning. And really, again, just mahalo to Kelly and to all of the conference organizers for putting together this gathering for us. HLA will always have a special place in my heart. I've had so many great experiences and I've learned so much at HLAs over the years. So it was a real honor for me to be invited to talk here at this year's event and to spend some time with all of you. For those of you who I don't know yet, aloha, my name is Keahiahi. I am currently joining everyone from my office at the University of Hawaii at Manoa. You might recognize the, oh, you can't see it, it's a bit blown out, but the mall is behind me here on campus. So I'm here in Manoa, but actually I live currently with my fiance and my pup in Honolulu, Eva. I'm currently a graduate of the LIS program here at UH. I also worked as a librarian for 8 years in a couple different collections within the UH system. And then, like Kelly said, I joined the faculty here at LIS in 2023. So my talk today is going to blend a few of these pieces, my background working with Hawaiian communities and my experience working in libraries. So let's dig in. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen and please let me know if this doesn't share okay. Does that look okay for everyone?
Yes,
Okay,
thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Kelly. So my talk today is called Lima and Spaces of Collaboration. I'll get a little bit more into this term, Kuilima, in a second. But let's start with this topic for our theme, Laulima. As I prepared for today, I really kept returning to the meaning of Laulima. And so what I did is I did what most Hawaiian scholars do. I turned to our Puke o Lalauno'eo, our book of Hawaiian proverbs. And this book was compiled by a Hawaiian scholar, Hawaiian language expert, Hawaiian teacher, Hawaiian educator, Hawaiian hula practitioner, Mary Kavanapukui. And in this book, she compiles decades of wise sayings and proverbs that she had picked up in community that she was familiar with. So there are over 2,000 olalono'eo in this book. And you're probably familiar with many of them. There's one that's the sub-theme for our conference today, A'ohe Nui Kealu'ia, many hands make light work. You've probably heard of others like Makahana Ka'ike, and the doing is where the knowledge is. And so you're probably familiar with one or two olanono'eo. But what I was surprised to learn is that the word Laulima does not appear in any of these more than 2,000 olanono'eo, our traditional proverbs and wise sayings. And this was, again, surprising to me because this corpus, olalono'eo, is such a rich collection of how we think about the world. There are so many metaphors used within these proverbs about our relationships to our land, our relationships to our genealogies, our stories, the way we carry ourselves. And so again, it was just really surprising that the word Laulima doesn't appear in any of these olalono'eo. So then I started wondering, like, what did our kupuna like really teach us about collaboration? What are the lessons that they want to share with us about collaboration? If Laulima isn't a focus, what is it that we might be missing? Like we talked about earlier, Laulima is often translated as cooperative work and literally as many hands. If you break down the word Laulima, you've got two words that we can look at. The first is lo, meaning many or numerous, and the second is lima, our hands. And your hands can be, just this piece here, palms and fingers, but lima can also be sort of the rest of it, what you've got here. And so if we've got, lots of hands working together, that's how we get this word lo lima. So it's easy to make the jump to cooperation and collaboration. But again, if Olalo no Eo don't share this word Laulima, then how is it that we should think about Laulima? How is it that we should think about cooperation and collaboration? What if it's not the number that's the point? What if it's not having many hands that's the true lesson here when we think about collaboration in our communities? So this moved me from thinking about Laulima, many hands, to Kuilima, joining hands. Puku'i and Handy describe Kui Lima as joining hands and walking hand in hand together in work. So today, I'm going to ask us to settle here on this word Kui Lima. I'm going to ask you to think with me about what it takes to join hands in our work. If you look at your own hand for a moment, if you really look at it, I want you to hold your hands up. I can't see your videos, that's fine, but I hope you're holding your hands up, right? I want you to notice something important. I want you to notice that if you're going to join hands, then you need to make space to join the hands. And so this is what I'm going to unpack for us today, is what is it if it's in the spaces of joining our hands? Well, there are four spaces, right? One, two, three, four. And so it's these spaces that I'm going to talk about, the spaces again where our hands meet. I'm going to offer a function for each of these four spaces. And I'm going to offer what it is that we need to think about when, again, joining our hands together. So the first space I'll talk about is space for capacity. The next space I'll talk about is a space for visibility. I'll talk third about a space for mistakes. And then next, I'll talk about a space for multiple stories. So we can think of these spaces as conditions for collaboration, again, how we bring our hands together. And I've learned each of these conditions, and I continue to expand my learning of them through a project that I've been a part of for 8 years, co-creating the Hawaiian Knowledge Organization System. This project, this HKOS, has been the longest, hardest, most beautiful collaborative project of my professional life. And if you've ever heard any of us talk about the HKOS, then don't worry, I'm not repeating what we've shared before. It'll be something different. But you've probably heard us talk about it because, again, we've been talking about this and working on this project. I've been a part of this project for 8 years. Sharon has been thinking about this, since she was a student. I won't say how long ago. But it's this idea of how is it that so many of us, so many of our hands work together productively, appropriately, authentically in ways that feel supportive and empowering. Right? It's been a group of us, and the group has changed every now and then, right? Through different phases of the work, people come in and come out. But it's been a group of us trying to build something that never existed before, right? Working across cultures, working across disciplines, institutions, worldviews, navigating values, relationships, timelines, accountability. This project has really taught me more about collaboration than any textbook I could ever read. And so when I'm preparing for this talk, I actually got really nervous and I was really trying to figure out why. And then I realized this morning, it's because I don't usually give this talk by myself. As you can see, there are many hands on this project. The PI for this work is Dr. Sharon Matsuda at UH College. Co-PIs on our current iteration of our work called Koha'iwai include Kapena Shim, Anne-Marie Paikai, and myself. And then, of course, there are so many others that support and make up central pieces of our working group, including Margaret Joyce and Kamena Koneji. We've also just hired a few new hands to this work. Hinano Tangaro has just been hired on, Ani Kawada, Alyssa Purcell. There are different students that have been working. Helen is a big part of this too. And so the point is, there's lots of hands. And when we talk about the project, there's usually at least 2 of us who are available in some combination to talk about this work. So what I share today is a reflection of our work for sure, but also big caveat, it's seen through my own perspective. If my colleagues were to give this talk, we'd each have a different thing to talk about. You'd be no talk would be the same. And so if you've ever heard us talk about this project, don't worry, it won't be the same thing. I won't try to unpack all of the metadata for you. I won't walk you through all of our community agreements, but I am going to share some examples because, again, this project has been such a source of inspiration and learning for me. So let me start by walking you through the 4 spaces that we learned to make and are still learning to make as we join our hands in this work. The first space, again, is a space for capacity. This is absolutely the first condition for collaboration. And I want you to look at your hands again, right? Look at the spaces in your hands and think about what can you physically hold in your hands, literally. Like, what is it that your 2 hands can hold? The reality is that we can only hold so much in our 2 hands alone. There was a lunch that we had on our group, and we were visiting Maui for one of our meetings, and this was in our last project, Keahiahi. And at the lunch, we just start talking about superpowers. What would you pick as your superpower if you could have any superpower? And I think folks are talking about like invisibility or flight or like mind reading or time travel. And my superpower that I wished for was I wished that I could have more hands. Like, I just need more hands, right? Can you imagine coming home from Costco? Like, I could do one trip, right? And how exciting would that be if I had 10 hands? Or if I'm cooking, I could have two hands to wash dishes and two hands to cut the vegetables and two hands to boil, right? To boil the pasta. I just need more hands to do the things. But that's not the point. The point, it cannot be that I grow more hands. Because if that's what I'm going to wish for, I'm going to keep wishing for this. It's going to be a very disappointing life for myself. So this is the point, is that like our hands can really only hold so much. We really can just do so much with the resources available to us. I remember early in our last project for Keahiahi, we were drafting the deliverables for our grant application to IMLS. And when we're thinking about deliverables, I'm always thinking big, right? And so my immediate reaction when we're thinking about how many terms, how many vocabularies do we want to create, I throw out 400. I might as well have said 1,000, right? And immediately, my very wise colleague, Margaret Joyce, says, yeah, let's think about process over product, right? Again, when we think about Lima, the purpose of collaboration isn't necessarily how many hands, it's how those hands are working together. It's the process. And that's something that Margaret brought forward for us in that conversation about deliverables. It's not so much about what we output, but how we output, right? Again, process over product. And so the reality is that in the 3 years that we did Keahiahi, again, our IMLS supported grant, we came up with 105 terms. Can you imagine if we tried to do the 400 as I like originally brilliantly thought we should do, right? But in 3 years to come up with 105 terms, that's not small work, right? There are so many factors to consider here. Institutional capacity, and I could do a whole talk about that, but I won't, right? But you imagine what kind of resources are available to you in the institutions you work at. Think about funding capacity. It takes dedicated finances to bring this work together. And then thinking about like personal capacity of our own team, what can each of us carry? And then the personal capacities of our consultants, of our co-creators, of our communities. At what point do they bring their own hands into the work, and how? And then, of course, there's software capacities. And that's something we're struggling with in our current iteration of the project called the Keahiahi. But this is a good reminder for me, and Margaret's lesson has stuck with me right ever since that conversation, which at this point would have been 5 years ago, I think. But this stuck with me, that to me, it taught me to take an honest reflection of what's possible in my own two hands and in the hands of the folks that are with me. What authority do my two hands have to approve? What capacity do they have to literally hold things? What can I carry in terms of meetings, files, creative outputs? So I invite you to do the same. There are so many things changing, right? Libraries are working with fewer resources while being expected to be leaders in conversations like literacy, AI, community engagement. And so it's easy for folks to overestimate what's possible for us. But I invite you to consider, if you need to think about the literal capacity of what you can hold in two hands. Bring the work very physical and very tangible, literally tangible in front of you. What can your hands hold? The materiality of this means making things visible so that you know what you're holding. And this moves us to our next space, which is making space for visibility. So our next space for visibility. When we make our labor visible, when we make our work visible, our contributions visible, we make each other visible. And that visibility is what builds trust, right? That visibility is what builds accountability. That visibility is what sustains our relationships. And so we've brought visibility to our work in different ways. This is going to get a bit technical, but I'll just share that the intention was to make the labor visible, right? To make the hands behind the work visible. And so we do this in a few ways in our project. One way is when we're creating our authority records, we included fields on the bottom here, like mea haku, created by, and mea loi loi, edited by. When you look at authority records, these fields might be present in some of the existing cataloging systems, but it's rare to have these fields visible in the public display of these records. But we wanted to make this visible, again, to make the work visible, to honor each other's contributions, and also to honor each other's authority, right? When we can put our names onto our pieces, we get to say, right, that these are our perspectives. We want to make our stories and our expertise visible. And so this is one way that we do this, again, in our records, by having fields that call out who's doing what kind of work and what those contributions are. Another way we did this in our project, in our last project specifically, is when we think about author contributions. And so this is a poster that we presented at the 2023 instance of the ACRL conference. That year was held in Pittsburgh, my first time to Pittsburgh. But it was Siobhan, Margaret, and I presenting at the conference, presenting this poster. But what we really wanted to do was to recognize that just because the three of us are there, right? Again, it's some combination of us from the team at these talks. Just because the three of us are there and present in that space doesn't mean we're the only ones present in the space. And so what we did is we named all of our collaborators on the project as co-authors of the poster. And so in the corner of the poster, you'll see our byline, and you'll see again that we included the entire Keahiahi team. Siobhan, Anne-Marie, myself, Margaret, David Gustafson at the time, Ho'oli Hiva, our GA, and then our consultants, Dr. Noelani Arista, Melia Lobenstein-Carter, Kahele Tuplo, Kekoa Harmon, Hokulani Holt Padilla, Colleen Uhiva, Sharon Farnell, Sandra Littitri, and Bunate Few. And this was important for us, and this grew out of conversations we had with our consultants. We didn't just put their names and put them into a public space without asking and making sure that it felt appropriate for them too. But this is, again, one way that we can make the work visible is to document not just who's there in the room for that particular talk, but to share with everyone's contributions, even if you don't see them right in front of you. So that's the next phase, right, is visibility, and how, again, visibility is so central to how we honor our relationships. And we know that staying in a relationship isn't always easy, especially understanding that all of us are human. All of us only have so much capacity, and at some point, we're going to drop the ball. The kind of collaboration that I'm interested in, collaboration that's grounded, reciprocal, empowering, requires the safety and courage to make mistakes. And maybe even more important is the space to stay in relationship and repair our harms when we make those mistakes. And I've had to do lots of repair. In so many ways, I am not the ideal collaborator. I am not type A. Whatever the opposite of a type A is, that's me. I'm type B, C, D, G, E, F, G, all rolled up into one. For me, deadlines are flexible. I'm always the last to turn things in. And this definitely came through on our last project in Keahiahi. I remember a very specific instance of me dropping the ball with one of our consultants. For some reason, I was in charge of the emails for the project. I was in charge of responding and communicating from our project email. We've since learned not to do this, not to let me be the person who emails. But in the project, right, I was responsible again for communicating with our consultants about what needed to happen and when our meetings were. But there was one instance where I just did not email our consultant in time, and they came to a meeting. They had logged on to a Zoom that we had sent, but we ended up already changing the meeting and rescheduling and needing to cancel. But again, I dropped the ball and I didn't communicate that to our consultant. And when they logged on, right, I got the email notification from Zoom saying, so-and-so is in your room. And I just immediately went into panic, right? I just immediately felt so terrible, right? This person had so many other things to do, right? They set aside time to share their wisdom with us. And again, I just dropped the ball. I apologized quickly, I apologized profusely, right? And that's always important, I think. And when you're making mistakes, is to take accountability. What's also important, again, is to try again, right? To continue to build trust and to try to continue to show up and not repeat the same mistakes. But that also meant taking accountability with our own team, right? There's so many times that we have uncomfortable conversations, not because it's fun, not because we want to, but because we know that having those uncomfortable conversations makes the work better. Means that all of us have space to talk about where we're coming from, means all of us have space to share our wisdom and share our stories, share our limitations. And so the lesson again, right, is to make the space, knowing that mistakes are inevitable, right? But also, again, making space for repair. This brings us to our last space, which is the space for multiple stories. And this is maybe the hardest space of them all, right? Because this space takes the most maturity, takes the most humility, takes the most courage. Holding hands doesn't require matching values. It requires creating space for multiple stories to exist in the work. And we've seen lots of multiplicity in our project. So the graphic you see here is one of our mappings for the term Pele. We created an authority record about Pele, and we mapped some of her characteristics. What are important things that we want to know about Pele, such as who are the people important to her, what places are important to her, what are some of the practices that are important to her. So that's what's represented in this graphic that you're looking at. But the point here is the multiplicity. Look at all of the ways that we can access this idea, right? Access this relationship for Pele. But again, the multiplicity can be hard to hold sometimes, right? There were consultants proposing different frameworks at different times. There's disagreement on certain fields. You know, we really had to push again to think about attribution and how it is that we honor everyone's contributions. There are moments of pushbacks, moments of receiving, and really trying to navigate when to hold firm and when to be transformed. Let me tell you, this project, this HKOS project, has been a masterclass in holding all of these stories together. Again, there's just so many different perspectives on our project. We all have different roles, different positionalities, different value systems, different ideas of what rigor looks like. But Kuilima, right, this collaboration doesn't mean sameness. It means relationship across the difference. We didn't collapse our values into one. We carried them side by side. And this final space, right, this ability to walk with multiple truths is what I think is needed most certainly now. So each of us come into this room today with two hands, right? Two hands that we use to serve our communities, to carry our stories, hands we use to build the future of our libraries here in Hawaii. So I'll restate our framework again, right? Kuilima asks us to make space for capacity, for honest reflection of what's possible, make space for visibility, to honor our relationships and everyone's work therein, make space for mistakes, understanding that those are inevitable, and also making space for repair of those mistakes. And then lastly, making space for multiple stories. And how is it that you're going to hold those stories together? Reflecting again on positionalities, authorities, and what's appropriate for your communities and the transformations of your communities. If we can create these four spaces when we work together across library types, across islands, across cultures, across values, then it's less about La Lima, right? It's less about having the hands. It's more about the kind of partnership that those hands can engage in to change our systems, to change our communities, to transform and empower the people that we're closest to and that we're accountable to. And this, right, becomes the kind of relationship that can hold us through whatever comes next. So as we move through the conference, I want you to look at your own hands, right? And I really want you to ask, what can I carry? What do I want to carry? What do I want to put down? Whose hands will join mine as I do this work? And what is this work that I want to carry? What will the future look like as we walk hand in hand towards it? That's my talk for today. Mahalo everyone again for joining me. Mahalo to the Hawaii Library Association for inviting me to share my thoughts. I think we have a few minutes for questions. I have about 5 minutes for questions. So I welcome any questions if anyone has any. Also, I'm around. As you've heard, email might not be the best, most efficient way if you need to get a hold of me quickly, but I'm around. I'll be at the conference tomorrow. And yeah, I'm here at Manoa, happy to talk story at any time. Mahalo, everyone.
Oh, thank you, Keahiahi. Thank you so much. Thank you. Yes, we do have a few minutes. Does anybody have any comments or they want to share how inspired they feel after hearing Keahiahi speak? Yeah, I hadn't thought about the space in between our hands, our fingers. That's pretty brilliant, actually. But I'm going to think about that now. Yes, thank you. It's
Can I ask a question? Oh, thank you.
Sure.
So first of all, I really enjoyed the presentation. It was very, very well organized. I love Prezzi's. It looks great and it has a really good message. And I was hoping to learn more from you about collaboration, and your project was super successful, and I hope it's gonna continue. It's gonna be even more successful in bringing this community together, because I personally find it challenging to do collaboration here. Whereas working one-on-one with people, everybody's really nice and that works well. But if we need together to move to the next step, I'm not sure how. I wondered, did you have challenges in having people first envision the next step and then taking the step? And if you have some advice for me. And I think it might be, of course, I'm a visitor here and a guest, and you are from here, so it's easier, probably, hopefully, for you guys to gather together, whereas it might not be for me for sure. So I acknowledge that as a difference.
Thanks for the question, Sasha. And mahalo for the reflections about our work. There are lots of challenges in collaboration. There are lots of challenges in how we bring the work to life. Again, there were so many times that our consultants had different ideas from us about what to do as far as the direction of our project. We had disagreements about, and maybe disagreements isn't the right word. Maybe it's more so divergences, right? We had so many different opinions and ideas for where to take the work. We had differences about fields. Some of the fields that we had originally proposed to our consultants, to our co-creators, they were like, oh, that makes no sense. That's actually not that important, right? But we had spent months thinking about these fields right before we presented it to them. But this is part of the work, and the challenge is continuing to come back, right? This is something we learned really often, is to practice. There's just so many times that we're going to have to engage in things that maybe don't feel so great, don't feel so comfortable. But the point is that we keep coming back to it. We keep showing up, right? We practice how to have those conversations. We remember that consensus isn't always the goal. Like there's just times where we're not going to land right in the same space. And we make space for that. We just acknowledge that this isn't a point where we're going to find agreement at this time. This might be something we park for later. At this time, we're going to prioritize, someone's expertise, someone's authority, and or the best meaning for our communities. How it is it that we make the best next step forward to make sure that we empower our communities. And so, yeah, so it's challenging. And at the end of the day, I think what also helps is remembering that all of us care about the work, and that it's a privilege to be able to wrestle with good ideas. Whenever we have these differences, it's not like it's good idea versus bad idea, right? We're picking from brilliant, brilliant ideas, right? It's just people have brought so much expertise and experience to the work. So that's been something to hold in the back of our heads too, is where it's a privilege to be able to talk about good ideas. And again, we don't always have the resources to go through all of them. And so letting go, right? Understanding that we're going to grant concessions and that might not feel so great. But again, holding the longer vision and coming back to it has been helpful.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck with the work.
Thank you. We have a few minutes, but we do have a couple questions. Kikilani Meyer, she has a question, and Margaret helped answer that in the chat. But if you have any more to add to that, Keahiahi, what is the current status of your project?
Oh, yes. Yeah, mahalo, Margaret, for sharing the website. So so Siobhan wrote her thesis and then her dissertation. We did a 2-year IMLS Native Hawaiian Library Services grant that Auntie Kiki actually helped us put together. That was 2018-ish. Then we did a 3-year IMLS National Leadership Grant, and that ended in 2022, I think, maybe 2023. And now we are doing a Mellon funded grant. We're so grateful for Mellon's support, so grateful that it's moved to foundation funding and not federal funding. The way that the timing worked on that was like kupuna given, right? Like it was definitely meant to happen in this way. So that's what's happening is we were awarded $3.2 million from the Mellon Foundation last year. And we had been working with Mellon, for almost a year before that. And some of that grew out of the work that we did to host ILF 2023 that Kapana and Ho'olihiva were co-chairs for. They received a Mellon grant to support that the gathering. And so we've been working with Mellon for a little while. Mellon had been interested in projects here in Hawaii. So ours isn't the only project. Kaho'iwai isn't the only project that Mellon is funding in Hawaii. They've got several projects. I think some of the folks here in the room are also supported by Mellon money. And so it's a 3-year grant starting in 2024, is meant to end in 2027. We've been doing some big work in terms of scaling out, right? At each phase of our work, we've been growing the team, the hands that have been doing the work to create records, to create domains. And so one of the big things we're doing with our project right now that Anne-Marie, Margaret, and Hinano are leading is to create a working group of professionals, right? Archivists, librarians, metadata enthusiasts, to dig into creating terms. And then the other big piece that we're hoping to put in with this project, with this instance, is to create the software. A lot of our work has been done in Google Sheets and HTML, just like manual coding. And so we hope with this next iteration to hire a software developer to create an HKOS software for us. Thanks for the question. Thanks for letting me talk more about the project, Auntie Kiki.
Thank you. Thank you. We have time for one more question. I believe Jenny, you had a question.
Thank you so much. Aloha. I love your talk. Thank you. I feel so inspired. And it's actually right along with some of the things I was thinking about, especially about when we join our hands in making space for the multiple stories. And I feel like all of us in the room have probably encountered how do we do that? So in a world full of divisiveness and disagreement and all of that, and we know that people carry their authentic stories in their heart, right? So what are your go-to strategies when you know you want to nurture connection? Like, how do we cultivate connection despite deep differences when those stories clash, in values? And I'm asking just because what your ideas were. I know this is an ongoing conversation. We can't solve it today, but I just love to hear your perspective on it because it's something I struggle with all the time. So, and I thought, well, maybe other people do this too. So thank you. If you have some strategies or
Yeah, so no, mahalo for the question, Jenny. I don't know that I have any good strategies, but I'm happy to talk about what I do. So my fiance actually is a Republican, as is my Nana. And these two people are very close to me, right? I love them so much, right? They are such a big part of my heart. They're such a big part of my day-to-day, such a big part of where I see my future. And yet our political differences are very, very oppositional. Like there's so many more things that we disagree on politically than we agree on. And so one of the things that's been really helpful for me, right, is to remember that the person that I'm talking to, like, they're not trying to attack me. Like, these people do hold space for me. Yes, they're holding on to their own beliefs, which are harmful to a lot of the communities that I hold on to, right? Are, again, just directly oppositional to the stories that I hold. But I remember, right, I remind myself that these people are not trying to attack me. These people are not trying to disagree with me because they think it's fun, right? This is, again, where they come from. This is what they believe. And so even though we don't often find agreement, right? I remember who they are as people. I remember that there are places, right, that we can find agreement on, and I dig into those. And also, I call the people who I love, right? Like I call the other people, right? Like I know that I have friends who validate me, who support me, who agree with me. And so being able to balance all the stories is helpful, right? Knowing that just because they hold this story doesn't mean it has to be my story. And it doesn't mean it's the only story, right? There are places where I go for different kinds of connection and different kinds of support. Thanks for the question, Jenny.
Thank you. Thank you. Let's see. Okay, one more question. We'll have one more question because we want to make sure that we have our coffee, tea break before we jump into our first panels at 10 o'clock. This is from a chat. Can you share what you recommend doesn't encourage collaboration based on experience, please? Thank you.
It doesn't encourage collaboration based on experience. Can you share what you recommend? Doesn't encourage collaboration. Auntie Kiki, can you say more so I can make sure I understand the question?
Aloha.
Hi, aloha. Long time no see.
Hi, good to see you. Mahalo nui for all the work you guys do. Well, this is really about what Sasha was asking, asking for your mana'o on how do you encourage collaboration? Which I feel is that's what with your presentation, you've really, been able to at least provide a framework. But I think we also need to look at, because we always look at duality, right? So I want to flip and say, based on your experience, is there anything that stands out for you that you feel, oh, that is something that does not encourage collaboration? And as a result of that experience, that is something that you're definitely cognizant of when you are in a collaboration.
Yeah. Okay. Mahalo. Thank you. Thanks so much for helping me understand that better. Yeah. Lack of communication, for sure. If there's one way, right, for things to go left quickly, it's misunderstanding. And a lot of times the misunderstanding is because of miscommunication. And a lot of times miscommunication is a lack of communication. We've gone through this a few times on our project working together. We've all known each other for so long, right? A lot of us were students together. A lot of us working on the Keahiahi project, the KOS project right now. A lot of us were students together when we were undergraduates and then graduates. And so we've known each other for so long. And so sometimes it was like easy to take for granted that we understood each other, but there were very clear times we did not understand each other. And oftentimes it's because we just didn't communicate about it enough, right? And so that's one lesson that I've learned is over communicate as much as you can, right? It might sound tiresome, it might sound tedious, it might be burdensome, but if it means that we can lessen opportunity for misunderstanding, then it's worth it. So that's what I would say, right? Is if there's a lack of communication, if there's a lack of safety around like people feeling like they can contribute, feeling like they can offer their opinions, feeling like they can offer alternate ways, then even if the majority is moving in a certain direction, then that's again like where we start to get miscommunication, misunderstanding, and the quality of our ideas really suffer too if we don't have our voices together. So I would say I would start there, right? Lack of communication and just how quickly it is for that to go to misunderstanding.
Mahalo nui.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Keahiahi, for sharing the wisdom, your knowledge, the knowledge of this project. As Stasha said it as the best, we'll be cheering and supporting everyone on this project wholeheartedly. Thank you.